morning. My name is Michael Garner. I'm the External Outreach Chair for UCF Steel. We are the Society of Themed Entertainment Engineers and Leaders, Society of Themed Entertainment Engineers and Leaders. And on behalf of Steel, welcome to our first ever international theme park and attractions panel. Thank you guys all for coming tonight. We have 7 wonderful panelists. We have up to 40 other industry professionals here in this room right now. So it's really exciting that during IAPA, when it's a tough time to have professionals talk to students, that we can have a night like this that's dedicated to professionals meeting students. And I'm really proud of all the students that came in to really show and come up for all the professionals that went out of their way to come here. Okay, well, without ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists. Right next to me, we have Rob Palmer. He's an integration producer at Syntech Systems. Next, we have Matthew Curnutte. He is a CAD designer at Sally Dark Rides. Andreas Panzer, president of AJT Consulting. David Bromilow. David, what's your position?
What do you want us to do?
He's the head of theme park stuff in Mobaro. Chief Operating Officer, Rocky Mountain Construction. Drake Crisler, head of service and engineering at Zamperla. And Brian Ruff, he is a production manager at the Gravity Group. I know that's a little brief intro of everybody, but shortly we're going to let all these panelists tell you all about their background and what they're doing now. Can we all give a special round of applause for our featured panelists? Thank you guys for coming here tonight. Without ado, can you just briefly explain your background, how you ended up in the industry, what interested you in coming to this industry?
Yeah, thanks Michael and the whole Steel Group for having us. We're excited to be here. So I'm Rob Palmer. I'm an integration producer with Syntech Systems, GmbH. It's a German ride manufacturer. I'm based here in Orlando with Syntech North America. It's a subsidiary working on a cool new project here in Orlando. I'm excited for everybody to see. I've always loved themed entertainment, environmental design, storytelling. So I grew up in Northern California. Disneyland was kind of my home for that sort of thing, and all the other great theme parks that are there. So I kind of found my way into the industry in LA. Started doing kind of production coordination. That's where a lot of people start. Got into technical coordination and direction, and then kind of went into creative for a bit. Did some design work for a project in the Middle East. And then more recently have been kind of general producer, which is just overall helping projects succeed and help teams find success. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Curnutte. I'm a CAD designer and mechanical engineer with Sally Dark Rides. We're based out of Jacksonville, Florida. We specialize, as the name suggests, dark rides and animatronics. I'm from Los Angeles, I'm from Southern California, and I was in immediate access to Disneyland, California Adventure, Knott's Berry Farm, Universal Studios. A little bit farther up, you go to Magic Mountain, and I just grew up loving theme parks almost my entire life. So it was kind of natural that I wanted to get into this industry. I don't have nearly as much experience in the industry as everyone else at this table. I've been with Sally Dark Rides for just a little under 2 years now, and about 4 years of experience overall within the industry. My first theme park job shortly after graduating from California State University Northridge was working crowd control at the 2021 season of Knott's Scary Farm, and I loved it. It was great. Shortly after that, went into ride operations, but during that time, I was trying to find any kind of engineering job, not just a themed entertainment job, because I realized I needed some of that experience. An opportunity opened up to go to the Disney College program, so I moved my entire life out from Los Angeles to Orlando, worked with Disney for a year. I worked as a hotel concierge, and if any of you have heard of the Big Break Foundation, they offer scholarships for students to go to IAPA every year. And with the thanks to that program, I was able to go to IAPA, networked the heck out of it, talked to anyone who could give me the time of day, and I was fortunate enough to land a role at Sally Dark Rides because of that. And yeah, that's been history since.
Good evening. My name is Andreas Panzer. I own AJT Consulting. I actually started my life in ProSlide Technology. In July of this year, I actually retired from ProSlide after 38 years. Unfortunately, in being in the position that I was in, There's a lot of people that I knew, and as soon as they heard that I retired, my phone started ringing, and people started asking me, "Can you come over and help?" Hence the reason why I had to started AGT Consulting. However, my background started in the, I'm going to date myself, right? In the 80s. In the 80s. My profession started as a yacht designer. So I started with the Stanford School of Yacht Design, became a yacht designer for power and sail up to 100 feet. And that's where it started. My father built sailboats for a living. He did that for 35 years. Unfortunately, the industry took a little bit of a crap back in the early 80s, and things were unsettled. So we had a lot of experience with fiberglass. We started producing fiberglass for a company called Alpine prior to ProSlide. Then our family started with Rick Hunter ProSlide Technology 38 years ago in 1986. And I started as a junior designer. I brought my experience in fiberglass design in CAD, and I'm talking AutoCAD version 2.17 with the amber and dark screen, no color, and DOS. So I'm dating myself. Yeah, no, I had a mouse, believe it or not. But I had to type all my commands in by hand on the keyboard, so it's not like today. So that's where I started, 38, run through about 15 years I had after that. Started with, about 20 years ago with ASTM, because the industry started being regulated, or at least there were thoughts of being regulated. Started with ASTM about 20 years ago, was involved with NARSO, became involved with AIMS International, became involved with TSSA in Ontario, Canada on their amusement Devices Advisory Board. ASTM, I'm currently the ASTM F24 Vice Chair. My term comes to the end in the end of next year, and if they have me, hopefully we'll be able to continue on. So that's basically my background. I can go on for a little longer, but follow suit.
Right, how do you follow that? So Dave Bromilow, Global Director of Parks and Attractions. I just put it on the card. Well, first of all, it's great to see you guys in it, right? I'm sort of sitting in partnerships. You guys are all the rivals, so this is fabulous. In our industry, brothers need it. But I can actually pip Andreas. So, 1977, I started my engineering studies, and my first day on the job, I was assigned to work with my father. And the picture might pop up of a particular ride. I got to build it with my dad. It was a steeplechase ride from Aerodynamics. And so I built that with my dad, started my engineering studies, and I got to build a launch loop with him right after the steeplechase ride. So that's how I sort of started in the industry. I followed my father. That was 1977, so 46 years in. Mechanical engineering was my studies. That's where I qualified as a young man. Stepped out of that at 21 with my degree. And I travelled to America for 3 months, and I ended up staying here for 25 years. Appreciate that. I might struggle today getting in, but I did come over for 25 years. So I spent 46 years working in the industry. I've been very privileged. I've worked all over the world on project management, installing rides, writing, developing maintenance programs. And a spell of that period also, I was working at Lloyd's of London. So I did sort of engineering technical risk management for Olympic programs, Formula One, NASCAR, anything on 2 and 4 wheels racing in the world, sort of fell under my technical remit. So I got to design some Formula One circuits, tinkered with some fast cars for a while, but I always stayed sort of very true to my industry, which was the theme park industry. And so I'm still in it today, 46 years on, still thoroughly enjoying it. But now with Mobaro, a Danish software company, but I travel all over the world, writing and helping to create content for PPM schedules for inspection processes for rides and attractions. So I've done the full circle, right? We've gone from, I still carry it, notebook and pen, to a digital process for rides and attractions. So that's where I am today. Again, like Andreas, I participate in ASTM EN 13814, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Our standards that we have in Europe, Charlie's laughing his butt off because it took us 10 years to create them, and it'll take us 10 years to update them, whereas ASTM, of course, is a movable feast. Yeah, so past chairman, IAPA Station Engineering, past chair, IAPA Europe Station Engineering, past president of AIMS, right, they need to help me out. Yes, but that'll do it for me, but I look forward to meeting with some of you and chatting with you and sharing some of my experiences with you tonight. So great to see you, thanks.
I'm Jay Kilcup. I've been with Rocky Mountain Construction kind of since the beginning of the iBox track system. So had the privilege of helping build that company from less than 10 employees up to where we are now. So I've held a lot of different roles at RMC over the years, and so I've had the privilege of having a lot of fun, learning a lot of different things, being part of the production team all the way up through design. My background's a little non-traditional. I'm not an engineer. I got my start as an architect, and I just really enjoyed design, and it was somebody else's job to figure out how to make it work, so it's perfect. So really recommend the architecture route, and then you don't have to worry about things standing up, you know.
That explains a lot, right?
I've been a member of ASTM. I've been out to a few of the events, but we send somebody out to ASTM events. Been a lot of fun. My start at RMC, like I said, is non-traditional. I graduated college at a pretty tough time getting jobs, so nobody was really building houses, and my first job was at Office Max out of college. And so I got my start at RMC by selling Fred Grubb's daughter a new laptop, and parlayed that into a job, and so far they haven't got rid of me, so keep going with it.
I'm Jay Crisler. I'm the North American head of engineering for Zamperla, and I got pulled into the industry by a buddy of mine, Michael Rice. Michael and I met at the University of Maryland. We both did a dual degree program where we both got degrees in German and engineering. And in order to get the degree in German, we both had to do engineering internships in Germany, and we lived together in the same dorm room, and that's how I got to know him. And we both graduated in 1994. Still younger, dating myself a little bit too. And it was in 1996, we were at a party together, and he walks over to me, he's like, hey, guess what? Guess what kind of job I got? And I was like, tell me. He's like, I got a job designing roller coasters. And I was like, of course, that's awesome. If they have an opening, have them give me a call. So a week later, Jim Shea from Premier Rides called me. I went down for an interview. A week later, I started with Premier Rides, and I worked there for 6 years. And then Zamperla came along and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They said, we want you to move to Italy and design roller coasters. And I'm in, so I quit my life, I moved to Italy, and I came back to the US in 2006, but I've been with Zamperla ever since, and that's how I got into the industry.
Hi guys, I'm Brian Ruff with the Gravity Group, and this one's probably going to blow your mind, but the short answer of how I got into the industry was my son's preschool teacher was married to one of the owners. The slightly longer answer is I was kind of really into coasters when I was a young kid and liked playing all the coaster games and everything, loved theme parks. Always wanted to work for a coaster company. Knew how hard it was to get in the industry, but I still, tried. Went into school in mechanical engineering and started, but quickly got weeded out of the program. Got a little scared, I guess, when the professor in my freshman year was telling me that, you're most likely going to end up sitting in a cubicle, designing some kind of widget, and, that might just be what you do for the rest of your life. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. So I ended up in construction management because that was, more fitting, I think, for me. And I just kind of rolled with it. And I graduated, was in the construction industry for 10 years, worked all kinds of projects in the renewables industry, power and industrial, heavy civil, quite a bit of everything. But fast forward 10 years later, my son is
in preschool, and his teacher says something on Facebook about, her husband working on roller coasters, and my wife brings it up and whatever, and she puts me in touch with Chad Miller, one of the owners of the Gravity Group. We're just talking, and turns out they need some project management help. That wasn't even on my radar, whatsoever. So we got to talking, and the gears got turning in my head, and I was like, well, wait a minute, here's my shot. And so, I kept talking, and I was like, looks like they want to hire me, so, here I am.
Awesome.
I made it.
Yeah, we're gonna keep the mic with you, Brian.
All right.
What's the culture of your company like, and what's your direct role? What are some soft skills and hard skills that you use on the job?
Yeah. So the culture at the Gravity Group, to be honest, it's probably the best place that I've worked. And I'm not saying that because it was my dream job growing up, but most of the people there have a passion for roller coasters, and so everybody's got something in common, to begin with. So everybody kind of is already sort of a friend on day one. Like the first day that I started, it felt like I was there for 10 years. So that was pretty awesome. It's probably the least toxic workplace I've ever been in, which is also awesome. I've been on a lot of construction sites, worked in a few different companies before, and it's so much more of a healthy work environment than any company I've been with before. So I feel really blessed that we have that going for us. But in terms of the skills, soft skills, I had to look that up actually. Yeah, anyway, so soft skills, I would say, project management, for one, that's more or less my background. I deal a lot with working with our guys in the shop every day. We do a lot of our pre-cut track. We make our own trains. We pretty much anything and everything that goes into a roller coaster comes out of our warehouse. Every nut, bolt, every piece of the train, everything gets touched by one of our employees before it goes out the door. And a lot of that has to be managed, and we have a good team. But there's a lot going on, so a lot can slip through the cracks if you're not paying attention or on top of things. So it takes a lot of help, and luckily we have very talented people like Thomas, who came with me tonight. He's our ride manager, but he helps me a lot, and we kind of direct our guys and kind of see who's best at what and whatever. And so we are constantly changing the plan, because nothing ever goes to plan. So being able to turn on a dime and manage your time is another soft skill, I would say. Being able to adapt to change, and just, I would say, being able to work with just about anybody. You have to learn to work with different personalities. Because not everybody's the same. I'm sure you guys have all figured that out. You have some people that are, very abrasive sometimes, and there's some people who are, a very soft spirit, and you can usually, be very productive with everybody. You just have to know how to approach them and work with them. So I'd say that's, that's probably the biggest three skills I would say that I utilize on a daily basis.
All right, is it the same question or a different question?
Same question.
Okay, so I don't know, I find it a very difficult question how to describe the culture of a company because there's lots of departments, lots of people. But Zamperla is very good, known for their theming, so they're very artistic. And before I moved to Italy, I guess I had some preconceived notions of what it would be like to work in Italy. I was drinking a lot more espresso and chatting a lot. I drank plenty of espresso, but we work very hard. So I would say Zamperla is very focused. You know, our industry is project driven and there's real deadlines, and so everyone's very focused. And one thing I would say, if I were to highlight a cultural part of our company, is Zamperla is very innovative. We have a large catalog, and every year we're adding new rides to that catalog. So I would say we're very well themed, focused innovators with an Italian flair. All right, and as far as soft skills and hard skills, all right. Hard skills, I remember people in college say, hey, I don't use anything I learned in college. That's not true. I've used a lot of what I learned in college, specifically physics. So I've used a lot of engineering skills I learned in college throughout my career. And the other hard skill I would say would be drafting. So I started, not as early as you, but they were doing a transition from hand drafting to AutoCAD when I came in. And it's evolved a lot. It's a lot better. You used to have you know, powerful computers, which are nothing compared to today. So the ability to draft is a lot better today. But I would say drafting skills, how to read a drawing, how to understand a drawing, how to create a drawing. And I don't know if we got any roller coaster boss, but I used to work a lot with the engineering office at Stengel, and Werner Stengel would always say, the language of engineers are drawings, and 30 years into it, I really understand what it means. As far as soft skills, I would say organization is the biggest one, but how you describe how to organize in 30 seconds or less, there's a lot of work, the volume of work is there, and the only way to be able to get it done in the right amount of time is to organize it. And I was talking to my wife earlier, and she said, well, why don't you mention negotiating? And that's true, I didn't think of that. And negotiating is a very good soft skill. You have to negotiate with the customers, with the vendors, you have to do contracts. So I would say that would be a very strong soft skill. And you want to end on that?
Culture at RMC is very collaborative. You know, we design, manufacture, install our trains, our mechanical, our track systems, and our other rides as well, since we've, in the past year and a half, taken on large scale international as well. So there's a lot of people spread out, and each one depends on the other department. You know, it's a very team atmosphere. If one of us, for instance, at the engineering team, you know, on one project, had to drop what they were doing engineering-wise and go out into the field and help set concrete forms, because that's what needed to be done. That was the best for the company at that time. So being able to help each other out, understand what the other departments are focused on and why they're focused on them helps you in your job as a designer, especially, you know, working one-on-one with the guys in the manufacturing facility, explaining what you're aiming for and why you're aiming for it, and then they can tell you their perspective. Both of you learned something, both of you, you know, adapted and changed. So there's a lot of that upstream, downstream education and collaboration at RMC, and you know, it's nice when we are in an industry that is. There's problems, things come up, schedule's difficult, we're always installing at the worst time of the year, the weather's the most difficult, so there's always uphill battles to have out there. When you have a team that doesn't point fingers at one another, instead they roll up their sleeves and jump in and help each other out. That's extremely important. I've never been somewhere that has been so willing to help each other out, even when it's outside of your area of expertise. So that's one thing that I think is pretty special about RMC. As far as hard skills go, I mean, I have quite a bit of drafting experience as well, and that's, I guess, less, but quite a bit of drafting experience still. And, you know, it's very important to be able to put your ideas down on paper and communicate with somebody else. I think what you just said about the language of engineers is a great way to put it.
What was it, because we understand?
Well, you said it.
Yeah.
But I think that was that's a great way to put it, because you know, you can sit there and describe something to somebody, but if you have the ability to sketch it on a whiteboard, put it down on paper, and put it in front of somebody, and then they get it, you know, that's an extremely important skill set to be able to help each other out. As far as soft skills go, I'm going to go right back to collaboration, working with people, working with different types of people. Engineers are a lot different than fabricators, than installers, than all the way down the line, and they're very different personalities. So having the ability to understand people from different backgrounds and get along with them, even if maybe you're not going to go do something together after work, but when you're working together, to be able to understand somebody else's experiences and really be able to work with them is really important. Understanding schedules, and I know this is something all designers that can be difficult, as 90% isn't done. Getting to that 100% mark is really difficult because you're really working on something that's a piece of art and art's never finished. But sometimes it's got to be turned in, so that's pretty important.
Could I have a different question? No, interestingly, you'll probably tell from my accent, I'm based in the UK. But Mobaro, the company I'm with, is actually a Danish company. It was founded in Denmark, specifically with the need of writing software for this industry. So it didn't come out of another industry. Tivoli Gardens, Jules Summerland came to a couple of my young guys and said, hey, can you help us out with some software for, guest feedback? Yeah, we can do that. And we sort of involved, can you help us out with maintenance? Yeah, actually, we can do that as well. So that's how we started. And that was 10 years ago, so we're a relatively new company. But if you've ever been to Denmark, it has a very distinctive culture, right? You've been to Denmark, you're nodding your head. So there's only about 7 million people live there, right? There's probably 7 million people in 20 mile radius of here, but 7 million people live there. It's an extremely successful country when it comes to engineering, pharmaceuticals, you name it, very, very successful. Which is quite surprising because if you go to my office at 8, you'll be on your own. There might be 1 or 2 folks in the office. They sort of drift in between 8, 10, 11, some leaving it through, right? Nobody punches in, nobody punches out when the work gets done. They have this terrific family first ethic, right? It's this work-life balance. And I thought it was just a big joke, right? So for 8 years, I really struggled with this. Because, I'd go over there, we all had lunch together. Everybody came to a room and we dined together at lunchtime. It's very important to do that. And so we have this sort of collaborative, you'll hear that more and more, collaborative culture. So we've got the guys down the end of the corridor, they sit in an office, they're the software guys. We put Carlsberg and pizza through the door once a week, and they just crank out software, right? And then we've got the marketing team, so it's very much like a regular company, marketing team, we have the sales team, but we all sit together and we talk about what our client needs. My job is to translate what that maintenance guy is doing on one of his rides and how I can make his job better, right? He needs to be able to access the manuals, he needs to be able to access the right kind of loop, he needs to access the lockout protocol. That's my job. I provide the conduit between the right mechanic and those guys at the end of the corridor in Denmark. So it's that sort of culture. So I've been with them 8 years and they finally bought me a book on how to work with a Danish company. It all makes sense, right? It all starts to fall into place. In England, you get up, you work hard, you keel over, you die, right? That's what we do. But no, not in Denmark. And you know what? It works. Culturally, what they have really adapts itself no matter where we're working in the world. And so we have this very collaborative group. It's a very young group, very dynamic group. And again, it's always about the focus is on the team. Keep the team happy, and the job gets done, and it really does. And again, I'm a bit long in the tooth. I didn't think this could happen, but it surely does. So after 10 years, we're working now in 300 parks and attractions around the world with our software. And a lot of that came out of some of the other skills that we have as a company. And it was the ability to listen, right, and communicate. Whether I'm, in Vietnam, looking at an old ride from the Hard Rock in Mozambique, no matter where you are in the world, you've got to have that ability to communicate. And you've got to have the ability to communicate across all levels. So I might be in the maintenance shop talking about the new Pirelli calendar with the maintenance guy, and then that afternoon you're in a budget meeting with the senior administrator for the park, looking at budgets and schedules. So you've got to have that ability to communicate across the piece, right? And for me, that was one of my sort of skills, I guess. I could listen to a maintenance guy. I knew when to put the filters in place because I've been there, right? I've greased rides, I've built them, I've maintained them. So having that ability, I can communicate quite well. So it's a very important skill. I was also dropped in the deep end when I was 21. I've just been minted, got my degree. You've got 45 heavily armed maintenance guys in pickup trucks in South Carolina, and you're now their boss, right? So you learn about respect and carry this with you throughout your whole career. No matter who you're dealing with, what you're dealing with, consider respect it. We're all parts of that. And I learned an awful lot, you know, by being thrown in at the deep end. I came off tools way too early. I should have been on tools a lot longer than I was, but you learn by being thrown. It's like, you know, the child learning to swim, toss them in, right? They'll figure it out. I had to do the same thing. So having that ability to communicate, to always dealing, no matter what it is, with a high level of respect. Always keep that. Encourage that for everybody. But good communication as a company. We're a very young company. We have an office here in Orlando. It's looked at new premises this morning. We've got 5 young people working in that office, apart from the MD, who's a bit of an old guy. But the rest of the team are all young. 3 of them ex-Disney, 1 of them ex-Wet n Wild. So we recruit from within the industry because it's important to understand. When I'm talking about a ride operator, you know, what they have to deal with on a ride. I've got 2 guys that have operated rides at Disney for 3 or 4 years. So they know that. They just have very good software as well. That's the culture of Mobaro, and I think that's been one of the significant features of our success over the past 10 years. And I was like Andreas, I would have actually stayed retired. I wish, so 10 years ago, that's what I was going to do, until I met these guys. And it just inspired me, you know. And again, I've been in it 46 years now, and I'm still as excited today as I was back then. And it's because of these young guys driving me. And guys like yourselves, maybe else in the room today. So. Yeah, that's it for me. Andreas,
well, my background and where I started in the collaboration in different companies, you know, having been with ProSite for 38 years and making the decision to move on, didn't really come easy, but it did come easy. As I mentioned earlier, I started very young. When I was around 12 years old, my father was manufacturing sailboats. So my background actually started in the sailboat industry, so we were trying to keep water out of our sailboats, and in the water slide industry, you keep water in the water slide, so it's sort of contrary. But what I learned in school, designing and engineering sailboats and motorboats, I actually was able to apply that directly into designing and engineering and laying out water slides. You know, you've got sections, you've got parts, you've got all kinds of different areas in there. But my background really came from my father, and the work ethic that came from him came from Europe. So my father was a master boat builder, and he came from Austria, my mom came from Switzerland. So I have that European mentality of work hard, sort of like what Dave was saying, you work hard and you gain your own success through your own work. However, you are always working with people that can help build you to a better person. So I took that when I started with ProSlide, I took that into heart because I actually started I was the lone designer. I had yacht skills because I was working at CNC Yachts in Ontario, Canada. It was a skill that I brought forward, not built into the company. So when I joined the company, they were using CAD 2D, and they were using a magnetic strip that they fed into a survey program, and that survey program, you had to write your code from beginning to end. If you got to the last piece of code, the last data point, and you screwed it up, you start all over again. So it's something that you learn patience and skill from front to end, and you make sure you do everything 100% right. I got fed up with that. I brought in AutoCAD, I brought in 3D CAD, I started drawing all the parts in 3D. So that's where my background is I take a challenge and I always have to be developing and doing something, building, trying to get something done. And I've taken that skill throughout. Now the culture at ProSlide, when I was working there, was a small group that grew into a very, very large group, and then that turned into teams. But one of the things that I made sure of is I grew out of my role as a designer and into development and so on, was I was making sure that those teams were always collaborative. We had to make sure that the engineering team knew what the designers were doing, who knew what the salespeople were doing, who knew what the president wanted to do. You know, it's great to say, I want this and this is where we're gonna go, but then you have to feed it all through the chain to be able to get it out the door and into your client's hands. And that's a skill that's hard to come by. Now, 20 years ago when I started with ASTM, I had all this knowledge, I knew about design and engineering, but I sort of a little bit isolated in the work that I was doing because I had the team behind me, had the people that I knew. Then I came into this different culture called ASTM. ASTM has 1,000 members today. When I started, it had a little over 200 or 300, and before that, it wasn't very much more than about 50 or 100 people. I mean,
50 people, one room.
yeah. Today, it's multiple people. So the skill I learned, if you want to call it a soft skill, is actually communicating with people and learning and understanding, taking groups that are basically on both sides of the fence and trying to bring them together, remove that fence and coming to a consensus. That's one area where I was with ASTM that actually allowed me to hone that skill. So when I tell people, I say, what are you interested in? And it's like, well, I'm interested in civil engineering. I said, okay, well, if you can't get a job in civil engineering, don't do something else and gain some knowledge and gain some skills in something else that you'll be able to apply it to what you're going to be able to do in your future. So that's what happened to me. That's where I came from. That's my background. I try and be everything and everywhere. But that allows me to have a taste of everything and everywhere and understand people and understand the industry a lot better. So I got to where I am today by being as open as possible and try helping as many people as possible. For me, that's the big thing. Like, that's something that's ingrained in me is if somebody needs help, somebody needs a hand, I'm always there now. I'm always there because they'll teach me something, but I'll help them learn something. My saying is I want to be less stupid today than I was yesterday, so I want to learn something to be less stupid because I'm not smart. I only know what I know because there's a lot more smarter people in the world than me. So that's always been my goal. So if you want to call soft skills or collaboration, that's always there, but listen and learn. You always hear that every day, I'll listen and learn, but listen, learn, and understand what somebody's saying. If you don't understand it, ask a question. That's what got me to where I am today. Now I've got people, I retired, and not 3 months after I retire, they're calling me up and they're asking me to help them out. Sure, no problem. It'll cost you $50, but that after a period of time, that's something that you can do, and that's something that you've earned.
What's it like working at Sally Dark Rides?
Yeah, and what are some skills that you use?
Working at Sally Dark Rides is the coolest, man. It's so cool being able to just walk around the workshop and see SpongeBob slowly, piece by piece, get put together, and then you see him move into the art finish department, and his grill's coming together, and his hat's there, and all of a sudden he's talking. It's just like, wow, what an amazing process to just see from beginning to end. Sally Dark Rides is a very small family-owned company, so I have the fortune of knowing everyone knows everyone within that company, which creates a really good environment for collaboration and problem solving. Like in the CAD department, we create the design documents for the attraction down to the layout, the wall locations, placement of more electrical and not HVAC, but more specific stuff like that. And of course, other departments within the company will be responsible for installing those things when the time comes. So in the CAD department, if we see something that looks a little fishy, or if they see something that looks a little fishy, we can come together and say, hey, this may not be in the right spot, or installing this is going to be a pain in the butt when we go on site. So how can we fix that and avoid that problem? We're always trying to look multiple steps ahead and look into how to avoid any kind of problems whenever we can. Oh goodness, I had such a long list, it was gone. But no, working at Sally Dark Rides is great. It's a very low pressure environment, I'd say. As long as you're able to get your work done and do it well, you're able to live your life in the ways that you can. Come in at a reasonable time, get your work done, and if you have to go to the doctor, if you have family things to take care of, you can do that, and it's not a problem. And I'm so young in the company, and our CAD supervisor, Michael, is also pretty new to the company as well, and as much as we've worked really hard to do a great job, we still have a lot to learn within the company and within the industry, and Sally has cultivated a wonderful environment to actually ask questions and to learn as well. Hard skills in the CAD department, we use AutoCAD, we use Revit, and we use a little bit of SketchUp as well to assist with that. Before that all gets moved over to the 3D designers, and then they make the Unreal previs of that. Soft skills, like everyone has said here, communication is key, especially in such a small company where there's not a lot of red tape. You need to know how to talk to all these different departments, all these different types of personalities, and be able to communicate your ideas and your thoughts either through words or through illustrations. If you're not able to communicate it very well verbally, just write it down, draw it out, and that might actually explain your problem a lot better. I think a really underrated soft skill, one of my professors told me this in college, is getting your degree or going to college isn't about remembering the information, but it's about knowing how to find and source the information. And I've really taken that to heart, and I've learned there that being able to research and find information that you learn this thing in school. Obviously, you're not going to remember every little bit, but you say, hey, I remember this thing, give me a second, I know where to find it, and then it's going to be applicable to our problem here and find a solution. That's incredibly valuable. I think I don't have too much to add to that conversation, but communication, learning how to research, and just being a great team member. Oh, another thing is working at Sally Dark Rides, I have the privilege of working with a lot of people who care about amazing storytelling. So many people at the company care about delivering an amazing product, delivering an amazing guest experience, and I have the privilege of talking with coworkers like Logan over there about just the nuances of why Popeye and Pluto's Bill Drag Barges is one of the most intense rapids rides I've ever been on, and how nothing else is like that intense. We have to stop, we gotta get to work. I'm so fortunate that I get to work with people like that and have those conversations on a daily basis. It makes me feel like I'm at a place that I belong and that my voice is important and valued.
Some fantastic advice up here. I seventh everything everybody said, especially about communication. I think that's the single most important soft skill anybody can learn. Everything we're doing is about building relationships and trust, and that's one of the key things that I need to do on a day-to-day basis, either internally at Syntech or with the client that I'm interfacing with. So building kind of common language, common experience, and being able to move things forward toward project goals is critical. And that's all because of communication, trust, and relationships. I really resonated with what Andrea said about kind of learning a bit about everything and wanting to be everywhere. So my background is not in engineering. I started in consumer and industrial product prototyping and design. So I worked for a very small shop and learned a lot of different tools. I think similar to probably the college experience that a lot of you have. So prototyping, manufacturing, all of the Adobe suite, all of the Microsoft suite, and just learning all those kinds of capabilities. And that's kind of the basis for my hard skills, let's say. Going forward, though, going back to communication, especially, being able to articulate what you want to do is key. And I think, like myself, a lot of people are visual learners. And so where I see a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity for anybody is learning how to define what you want, not necessarily just in drawings, which are the language of engineering that's been established, but with flowcharts and diagrams and any kind of representation of what you want to convey. There's additional documentation that I think should be created for a project that really helps to streamline the process of getting somebody up to speed and on board. So that's all really key. Communication. Learning how to write also is critical. I hated writing. I failed English in high school so many times. I thought, no, I'll never write. I don't need to learn that. Writing is lame. And now I write constantly for my job. So be careful what you say. As far as Simtech, so also a European company, and so as an American, who we work until we drop. It's been a change for me. The work-life balance is fantastic. My experience is a little different in that I'm here in Orlando in the field to install a project, so I have a very specific focus for my time and effort. So that's kind of my overriding goal and drive is the project. Simtech itself, though, culturally is also a small family-run company. It's about 100 people. Almost everything is in-house, so it's really engineering and design focused. The software team is in-house, so all the controls, design, and software programming is done in-house. All the electrical paneling is built in-house. Some larger steel things go out of house, but it all comes into the building to get finally assembled and tested in QC. So Simtech is very tightly integrated that way.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Well, the time flies really fast when you have 7 panelists, and you guys all been doing wonderfully. Usually, I ask about advice for students, but I'm going to give it over to the audience here. Do you guys have any questions for our panelists? It can be to one of the panelists, it can be to all of the panelists. If you guys need help, we've been showing projects on the side throughout the event, so please raise your hand if you guys have a question for our panelists. No one? Oh, come on. Seriously? No? Okay, there you go. We got a question. Go
Somebody
ahead.
had to break the ice.
I have a little bit more of a personal question. So I'm first year university. I've always been interested in deep park engineering, but I'm on the civil track. So I'm trying to understand and explore different minors in order to further experience my knowledge and opportunity within the theme park industry. So I'm bouncing back and forth between engineering leadership, hospitality general, or even Rosen's theme park and attractions management. So I would ask, any or all, what your thoughts are on that.
Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll jump in first. I'm a mechanical engineer. First and foremost, I'm a maintenance guy.
I always have to say that, I have to qualify it. But no, when you look at our industry, we were having a conversation earlier, when we look at it from an engineering standpoint, there's actually very few opportunities in parks. If you look at sort of 95% of the parks in the US don't have engineers on staff. They have maintenance guys, right? When you look at the larger groups, the sort of Universals, Disney's, Six Flags Entertainment, as we call them now, they'll have a series of engineers on staff. So a lot of the engineering disciplines tend to come out of the manufacturing side, from the supply side, whether it's coastal manufacturers like these guys, private manufacturers like Zamperla. There's a rich vein of that in the US. And it's not just rides, we have other structures as well. So, because you mentioned civils, civils are extremely important, of course. Everything we build, we've got to have something sitting on, right? But yeah, the engineering management side of things, I think will stand you in very good stead. Because that could take into account leadership within an engineering maintenance department, and that applies to any park in the country. But when you look at the industry as a whole, don't be afraid to question it, right? Whether you're electrical, mechanical, structural, or civil, there is a home for you in our industry. We need you in our industry. But I think it's finding the right channel. Is it the supply side, or do I want to be on the consumer side in the parks themselves? And don't be afraid of looking at parks that don't have high-level engineering disciplines, right? There is a home for you in there somewhere. And again, as Andrea said, don't be afraid to challenge yourselves on that. But I think any kind of sort of management with a bias in engineering and maintenance, mechanical, electrical, will certainly stand you in good stead.
I have a question for you. Have you ever been employed in an amusement park? Anything that's hospitality related to the amusement industry?
I have not. I'm waiting to hear from Disney within the next month of whether or not I will be working in their attractions department as a part-time employee. But I'm just waiting to hear
So
back from them.
if you are interested in Disney, everybody always wants to achieve, oh, I want to get into Universal, I want to get into Disney, I want to get into Six Flags. Find out who supplies Disney. Find out who supplies Six Flags. Who's connected to those companies that are their premium or one of their biggest suppliers, or anything that's related to that, and get in there. Make a name for yourself in there, or just get some general knowledge, because you'll find out a lot more from them about their client, being Disney, Universal, whoever it may be, Fun Spot. You'll find out more about them. You also learn about your trade, your skill. You'll get an idea of where you would like to be. You don't have to go to Disney or big corps to really gain that knowledge. You can get it through their affiliates, through the people that they are related with. So try that out.
I actually have an internship next summer with White & Turner, one of the contractors.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, we're gonna go to our next question. Does anybody else have a question for our panelists?
If you don't, we're gonna walk around with mics.
Do you guys, I don't know if you can make a comparison, but do you find it like more entertaining, or what's the right word? I guess more fun to work with like a side company that works with the parks rather than working with the parks themselves within their company?
Like parks versus contractors, is what you're talking about?
I worked with ProSlide. ProSlide worked with Universal, so when you see the slides, you see Volcano Bay. I worked 3.5 years on that project. I spent 6.5 months sitting in the Drury Inn, working on Volcano Bay, trying to get it completed towards the end, other than the 1.5 that I worked helping design the rides and so on. I had more fun working with the people that supplied, and that's where I was saying that earlier. I had more fun working with people that supplied it, the contractors, the suppliers, the engineers. I got so much more knowledge with them than actually working with the Universal people. Sorry about that. I know Ski Plum real well. I know Justice Force real well. I know key people in Universal. I'll always have more fun. I'll always do work with the people that work for.
So with Sally, we don't usually work with contractors. We usually work directly with the parks. And I think it could depend on the park, definitely. I know with, again, I've only been with a handful of projects, but we're speaking with some other people who have, done projects in the past. Working with smaller parks, more family-owned parks, has been a lot more fun of an experience than sometimes working with some other bigger parks. And sometimes it depends on the IP, how demanding is the IP holder with the way that their characters are represented. So it could vary widely from project to project.
Okay.
I think depending on what you're most interested in, that too will affect kind of your decision. So, Disney, Universal, Six Flags, I don't think any of the parks are building their own equipment, right? They're maybe speccing it, sometimes designing it to a certain level. I think Disney and Universal tend to design their expectations for their experiences or attractions a lot further than other groups would. If you want to be on the design side of things kind of early on at that level, that's great. But you can also do a lot of design work at a vendor like Sally, like Matthew does. So you kind of have to think about that. If you want to be really hands-on, if you want to be walking the shop floor and having those conversations, then absolutely work for a vendor. If you want to be part of the core team that's coming up with the idea, I know this is kind of an engineering-focused group, but if you're more interested in maybe the emotional aspect of the entertainment, then you probably will get more satisfaction if you're working on the design side for Disney or Universal or any of the other design firms that are out there. So quickly touching on your question, if you are interested in kind of managing the thematic aspects of the industry, I would suggest some theater exposure as well, so you can understand a show.
I would wholeheartedly second that. When I was in high school and college, I actually did a lot of theater and a lot of improv too. So learning the set design, learning the lighting design, learning what blocking and staging is, and then in improv, learning what storytelling is. Obviously, you learn that in theater too, but in improv, every single scene is a brand new story. You learn your who, your what, your where, and that changes every like 3 to 5 minutes. And with dark ride attractions, the story can be a lot more simple, not in a bad way, but sometimes you gotta get your emotional beats out and your characters out really quickly. So learning how to tell that story effectively, quickly, how to land those emotions is very, very important in telling that kind of story. So get involved with theater, expose yourself more to movies, video games, anything that you could learn a narrative from. And don't ask yourself, why is this happening in the story, but why am I feeling this way? Why is this thing happening in the story from like the writer, the director's perspective? And that'll help you to learn how to actually tell a good story and how to place things a certain way and light things and so on and so forth.
Put the pressure on the takers.
I sort of learned this from Matthew on a phone call the other week, but don't be afraid to test the waters, right? Go get a job in a park, go work in write-offs, go work in food service, and explore those avenues. And no matter where you're working in the park, you'll soon have an understanding about how a park ticks, right? And even though we call ourselves engineers, first and foremost, we are creatives, right? It's our job to create memories, to create lasting memories. Our job is to take people to the very edge of business and then bring them back safely, right? But first and foremost, we're creative. So again, don't be afraid to test the waters. I know Matthew was talking about working the horror nights, right?
Yeah.
And you learn so much about the personality of the guest. And from that, you can apply that to yours. And I'm sure it does now to his stories. Yeah, don't be afraid to get in early. You will learn an awful lot. But as Andrea said, I've worked on both sides of the fence. I've worked in many parks. I was a consultant for 25, 30 years, supplying services to parks. It's just good bloody fun. I mean, I've never had a proper job. And that's the way I look at it. So I've worked on both sides, in parks and on the dark side, the supply side. And it's a fabulous industry. And enjoy it, it's a great ride.
Cool. We're going to take one final question from the audience. You go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking to first in international companies that are like different from your nationality. What were do you guys have any difficulties in onboarding Western companies? Or as a profession at the time, did you require any certain documentation or certifications for the job you're taking at that international company?
It was easy for me when I came to America. I was 21. And I really was thrown in the deep end. So as I mentioned, respect. When I talked about those 45 maintenance guys, this was in South Carolina. They drove pickup trucks. They all had a dog in them and a rifle. I come from England. We don't have anything like that. So it was respecting the culture, right? That's first and foremost the thing you've got to do. Whether you agree with it, disagree with it, whatever it is, you have to respect it. And so yeah, when I came to the States, it was very easy. I didn't have a language issue. That was the one thing where you were. It still has a language issue. The Danish speak better English. There's a necessity growing up there. But again, adopting to those cultures and enjoy it. You'll learn from it. There's so many things you can learn by living in another country, and I would thoroughly encourage it. Again, I was blessed. I did it when I was 21. I came here for 3 months. That's like 22 years. You guys didn't kick me out, so it's great. But no, enjoy it, make most of it. You will learn so much through travel if you are talking about working in a different country. We've got a lot of international companies in our industry, whether it's ride manufacturing, Charlotte Pacoma, based in Japan, Holland. They have manufacturing facilities all over the world. So and it's the same with the parks and attraction side, with multiple sites around the world. And those are all opportunities that can be explored within this industry. we are an international industry. Even though we work in small communities, we are a big international industry. So I would encourage, if you can, travel outside of the US and explore Europe possibly, or well, anywhere in the world really. You'd be most welcome within the industry.
So,
Not sure about Canada.
well, Canada, well, that's everybody's good with Canada. Canada, everybody just come on over and say hello and let's go. No, in Canada, Canada is, you know, it's, you don't have to have a work visa, but you have to have more or less an invitation from a company. If you have employment in Canada, you can show it, you can get your visa, you can get into Canada. But when we're talking about international work and going forward, I agree with David and everybody here is, you know, one thing that my father has always said to me, and it'll always stick with me, and I say this all the time when I have a group of people that are wondering what they should do. He told me, if you don't try, you don't know. And if you don't know, that'll eat at you more than if you didn't try. So try it. When we started ProSlide in 1986, 2 years in, they shipped me to Japan for 2.5 weeks. I don't know the language. However, the people over there were so nice. I learned the culture. Now I love that culture. I learned enough of Japanese to be dangerous, not get in trouble, but not really say the right things. I've lost that, but I speak English, French, German. I've lost my Japanese. When we started working with China, I started trying to learn Chinese. Forget it. It's not a language that I'm going to go with, but I got 3 languages. My kids speak English and French. So the more you know, the more you put yourself out there, you take what you would consider a risk, could be something that's life-changing for yourself. If you don't try, you won't know. And if you're like, oh, I should have done that, that's more disappointing than going there, trying, and then either you don't succeed and say, yeah, I suck at that, or you go there and then all of a sudden you find out, man, this is cool, and then you keep going, and then you go for the next thing, and the next thing, and all of a sudden, people start seeing you. As I was saying earlier, you go in an industry, you may not be directly involved in the amusement industry, but you're in a sector of it. People recognize good skills. They'll go get you. Make yourself a name wherever you are. People will hunt you and say, yeah, like, I dealt with that person over there, I dealt with John over there, I dealt with Sue. They were great people. And all of a sudden, you're getting recruited. And all of a sudden, you're the one who is going, should I or shouldn't I? You're in this industry. This industry is very, very diverse. And if you have an opportunity in this industry to move into a different direction, especially when you're young like you all are, go there, spend some time. Then you can start thinking about settling down. Then you can start thinking about the long term.
Okay, well, thank you everybody. That was our first ever International Theme Park and Attractions panel. We have